Welcome back to another exciting and very inspiring episode of On Location in Vancouver, but today we're here in Whistler, and oh my goodness, I am like so excited.
How are you?
I am so good. I'm like bursting with energy because my goodness, 2000 February is when I first came to Canada, and I turn on the television, Much Music, and there is this friend sitting right over here with his like dark hair and jewelry, and it was like you and Rick.
Still wearing the same stuff actually after all these years.
And I don't know if you remember, but like we're gonna do your introduction shortly, but I met you very briefly. I used to have a pixie cut at a CBC media event like 10 plus years ago.
In Vancouver?
In Vancouver,
Very cool.
Yeah, when they used to do those like big shuttles and they would take you to their sets and all that stuff. And when you guys said yes to be here, I was like, I'm so stoked.
Happy to do it. Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Dude, I'm just like, I feel so honored to like sit here with you. And like, I think someone posted on social media the other day, they were like a national treasure. And that's exactly it. My friend Nicole Hodges, you did the Men Who Take Baths.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
With her.
Yeah.
So, George Stroumboulopoulos.
How are you?
I'm doing so good.
Great.
I'm so happy.
How beautiful is this? Misty mountains, like Zeppelin said, and snow and a little bit of rain. What a beautiful place.
Beautiful place, wonderful guest. We're here. We're happy to have you here. So George is one of Canada's most recognizable broadcasters, celebrated for his authentic style and diverse career, spanning music, television, and radio, starting as a Much Music VJ, as I just mentioned, back when we used to have VJs.
Imagine that. Imagine that.
And he's hosted shows like The Punk Show and The New Music from 2005 to 2014. George helmed CBC's The Hour, later George Stroumboulopoulos Tonight, earning 8 Gemini Awards and featuring a mix of news, politics, and celebrity interviews. You know, and obviously there's a lot of advocacy work that you do. You're going and traveling around the world, and the causes that you're speaking up for and about, it's helping shine a spotlight. So I feel very inspired by who you are, the energy, and even here and watching you on stage yesterday, the conversation. You know, it's so different when you see someone on television versus when you see them on stage. And I was sitting right behind Tanya, your producer, and not knowing that was her. And it's such a different feeling seeing you up there on the stage and seeing your energy and how present you are with your guests.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's something you were born with, or that's something that you've developed over the years?
I think it's sort of a combination of both. There's a craft to it's easy to be present and pay attention and have a conversation a few times. To do 10,000 interviews over 30 years, the consistency, that kind of thing requires a bit of a craft. So you definitely have to do work at it, because when I'm doing a TV show, I'm not only having the conversation with the person, but I'm also thinking about what has to come next, and I'm getting signals from a floor director, and there's just a lot going on. So you are as present as you can be, understanding that the job is to make sure this television show is executed that night. So there's an element of that. But I think if I have any skill in this world, and I don't know that I do, but if I do, it's very easy for me to shut out the outside and just be here with somebody. And I feel like that's something that's been a part of my whole life. I've lived such a privileged life, and so much of my life has been lost in a song, or lost in a movie, or lost in a show, or lost in a book. So I've spent a lot of alone time listening to other people express, and I have a tremendous appreciation for an artist and a storyteller and an activist, or anybody who's out there trying to fill in the empty spaces of a weird existence that is life. So I have a lot of experience, just me and that thing. So when I'm sitting across from somebody, I'm just transported back to listening to a song on my old Walkman.
There's like a heart that you bring into the conversation, and I think part of that seems to be like an innate gift at the same time, it seems like you are a lover of people.
Yeah.
Like you love people and there's a curiosity.
I think so. I think the older I get, the more I realize that I'm more on the George Carlin side, which is I love the person, people at large, big groups, movements. A lot. I have so much distrust of a lot of what this existence is, but the one-on-one thing, I really think this is where changes can be made, and. Not that I'm setting out to change you or anybody, but just this idea that what the two of us can come up with today, there's an alchemy there that's just, it's singular. Yeah. It's one thing that, and no one else can replicate this. So, what I do love is when people win. I love the triumph of humanity. I want somebody to win all the time. I've always wanted that. So I think it does, I definitely come across as somebody who loves this, but I'm curious, I'm interested in life, and I think that I'm not a particularly educated guy. I don't even value education, if I can be so bold. I don't, or your traditional education. But I think you can learn a lot from being connected to people, and I just love that. If I'm by myself in my room, I'm watching videos, learning how to do things that I may never end up doing. But I just love to learn all the time, and I feel like this thing is the best way to learn.
Did you always know you were going to perform? Like, was this a thing that you wanted to talk to people, interview people? What did you want to do when you were like 8 or 10?
Not even a little bit. I had no aspirations. Honestly, I didn't grow up. I'm 5 years old. You think about, maybe I could be this, maybe I could be that. So I would have those moments, but never really aspired to much. I'm not that kind of guy. I just thought I'd get a good job, hopefully somewhere. I was driving a forklift at Pearson Airport. I was making sub sandwiches in my old neighborhood where I grew up, and I was an usher in a movie theater. So I was a guy who had jobs. I had 3 or 4 jobs at the same time, almost all the time. I worked all the time. Paper route in the morning, making subs for lunch, working at a bookstore at the airport, driving a forklift on the weekend. So I just was a job guy, and I like being a job guy. And sometimes I think, God, man, how great would it be just to have a job where you can go home at night and not think about work all the time, which is what I do now. But I didn't really plan on, but what I know now, through the benefit of hindsight, is that I loved radio and I loved movies. And so I would watch as many, and I watched strange movies. My uncle was this really lovely, curious man about the world who, when he would babysit me, we would watch independent film from Eastern Europe. We would watch all kinds of stuff that my friends wouldn't normally have access to. He would take me to movie theaters to see films that kids probably shouldn't have seen in terms of the subject matter, but I was so grateful for it. So I was just really connected to really interesting things on the fringes. I liked that. I possibly felt like I was one of those guys in the margins. Certainly in my neighborhood and in my life, a lot of us felt that way. Not everybody, but a lot. And I love that. It's also the rise of the kind of music that I liked, which was very rebellious, for better or for worse, both often. And the Misfits and, Metallica, Slayer at that time, all these kind of bands sort of came out. And so there was just a lot of value placed in being an outsider culturally in my era. But I wasn't in a good enough position to do that, and I wasn't particularly skilled at anything. And then I got kicked out of art school. I wanted to be an artist, so I wanted to be a visual artist. I wanted to draw. I wanted to be an architect, but I failed the classes you had to pass to get into a career of architecture. I got kicked out of art class, so I didn't have anywhere to go. And I just thought, maybe I'll do this. I was an usher at a movie theater. I wanted to make independent films. I had no way to do that. But to graduate, I had to take an art class, but in my school there were only 2, and I had been kicked out of the one. So the only other option for me was the one that was the last choice of all the classes you could imagine. Of all the classes you could pick, my dead last choice was drama.
Okay.
Dead last. But I had to take it. And then when I got there, I just met some amazing teachers, but I did not expect to be in radio or TV. I didn't even know you could do it for a living, honestly. I thought you had to know somebody or something like that. But I just, maybe through will and, what did Gord Downey say? Through will and determination and grace too. That's sort of how this career happened. What
would you say if you're looking back, what inside of yourself, because obviously to have the career that you've had, to have had interviewed all these notable people like Maya Angelou, you know.
That was, I'll tell you, having Maya Angelou sing a gospel song to you when you walk into her house, that's a thing. That thing stays with me.
Tell me when you got that interview and when you were going to her house, because that's very intimate, like going to her place, being immersed in her energy.
I don't know why she said yes to us, but she did. We had really great producers on the talk show who really knew how to chase down the really impactful, meaningful people. I got a call one day that said, Dr. Angelou will have a conversation. You know, she wasn't doing well health-wise, so it had to be in her home. And I said, yeah, let's go. And, you know, you walk up, and she was so warm, so welcoming, so present, and funny. She was funny. She loved to laugh. And she also really loved my last name. You know, she had married to get the name Angelou, apparently, and she loved if somebody kept it. She said, I love a good, strong Greek last name. So she loved my last name, and she liked to say my last name, and it was trippy, man.
Yeah.
It was really trippy. Yeah.
That's really cool. I saw your dad is Greek, was Greek,
Yeah, that's
and
right,
your
yeah.
mom is Ukrainian.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that like being raised by your mom?
Great. My mom's pretty dope, you know. We have very little in common in practical daily terms, but we have a tenderness towards each other and a love for each other that I think is really maybe the single most instructive thing in my life. The fact that I grew up in a place that maybe in a situation that could go the other way, but my house was filled with love and filled with discipline. My mother did not mess around. My mother was not my friend and was very clear about that. I'm not your friend. My job is to prepare you for this life and the next, she would say. She's very religious. And she's so religious, she doesn't think she's religious. It's a faith, it's a relationship, right? And that none of that took for me, but love was really important for her, and tenderness was really important for her. Compassion, empathy was really important for her. When I saw her live it in her daily life, so she would tell me these things, but then I would actually see her do it. And I think I'm not the person I am without any of that, definitely. So I feel like I had the best upbringing. I remember my mother saying to me, it doesn't matter how it's supposed to be, the cavalry ain't coming. So you have to do this. You have to do, if you want anything, it will be up to you, because it will never be given to you. And I don't know if it's brain chemistry. I don't know how much free will we really have, but with my brain chemistry, I took that as, okay, cool, no problem. I didn't take that as, how come it won't get given? I was just like, all right, cool, let's go get it then. Let's go get it then. And I really like it. But, and this is something she did teach me, which I think is really important, is that if you do get it, there is no value attached to you because you got it. There is no extra dignity that comes with accomplishment. There is no extra self-worth that you should have if you do it. The only dignity, self-worth, and value should be attached to how you treat people. And she was really, really big on that. My mother places no value on professional accomplishment. Didn't care about school necessarily. People in my family, I don't think ever asked me, maybe they did, but not enough that I would remember that they asked me what I wanted to do for a living. My family did not value that. That's a kind of structure placed upon us. And my family were savvy enough, you know, depending on who they were, they escaped the Germans, they escaped the Russians. My family was on the run, right? So they knew that systems were always going to be problematic. And so they're like, this is going to come from us. It's you, it's our family. So she didn't care if my mother still doesn't care about my career. You know, she thinks it's funny, but she didn't care. Just like many times during that run of the talk show, she would call me and she'd say, maybe you should leave. And and it's just a lot of work, and maybe you shouldn't, and maybe you just become a preacher or do this, or they don't care. I think growing up, I have zero anxiety. Now, who knows if my brain chemistry will change, but I have zero anxiety. And part of the reason I have zero anxiety, I think, is because I was only pressured to be a good person. I was pressured to work hard at what I did, but I was never pressured to attach any value to accomplishment. And I still don't. I want to do cool things, but I know that even if I pull off all of my dreams in this career, they will have, it'll be absolutely nothing connected to my self-worth or value. I don't care about that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was very instructive from my mother.
Whether you're at a big festival or huge guests, or you get, Much Music or CBC or whatever, they're like, okay, sorry, this is the last run. How do you manage like your emotions? Like, how do you manage your, like, I used to teach yoga, but it's like, I feel like I don't have that figured out. I'm not that.
It's hard.
Because a part of me, I don't know if it's the ego or what, where you're like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Everything makes sense and everything's always going to be like this. So you want to hang on so tight.
It's ego and fear. It's ego and fear.
Yeah.
So address the root cause. Like everything that we do in this business that hurts us is when we put a Band-Aid on the injury. Figure out how you got hurt in the first place. It's ego and fear. Get past that. That's it. It's not, by the way, you can't get past it once and then that's it, because ego and fear keep moving. It's a video game, right? So it's constantly moving it. Remember it's an old game called Whack-A-Mole where a mole would come up and you'd have to hit it? Like that's what staying stable, focused, healthy, that's what this job is like, because our job, which gets more credit than it deserves and gets more criticism than it deserves. What our job does that most people could not handle is the public aspect of this, getting yelled at on the street positively or negatively. It messes you up. So you have to kind of look at the root causes and say, okay, so I know that I'm going to have to be diligent about keeping ego and fear in check. And then you have to make sure that you're stable enough to do that. So work on your stability. You got to keep your head straight, man. You got to keep your head straight.
I mean, you're definitely playing the long game, but also I admire that. I admire that how you're able to, because there's times like where I've interviewed people or, been grateful enough that they said yes, and okay, this is going, or the energy or the aura that they're bringing in, and like the openness that you're speaking with here. Like, I feel like for me, doing these interviews and asking these questions, it's like learning. And when I watch you work, I personally feel like you're like a student with this person, because that's how I feel like I am, because I want to soak in a little bit of what they've learned and experienced through their trial and error, because there's a reason why, like all these superstars and all these amazing humans. So I want to talk about like how you prep for your interviews.
Sure. Can I add one thing to what you just said though? Because yes, we're students. Yeah. But we're not really just students, because the problem with being just a student in these kinds of conversations is you then attach a value to that person, and we live in this weird celebrity culture, right? What's really important is not so much them, not so much you, but the thing that we create or excavate, that the person at home who has had a really rough day, the thing that they get from this. So we're not so much students listening to a master talking to us, because they're also not masters. They're not all David Bowies, right? Even the really accomplished ones are also on the grind, on the hustle, on the figure out. They're also on the journey with you. So in a way, they're learning from you as well if you do your job right. What we're really here to do is create that thing for the person who tapped on their phone or their iPad or their computer and watches this. We're doing the thing for them. Yeah. That's what this is really about. So there's an element of being a student, but it's not just about being a student. It's about being a student of the human experience, which involves the people watching.
And then sharing that journey with the audience. Yeah.
Okay, you were going to ask me.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, tell me about, for example, if you're going to Maya Angelou's house. Yeah. You get that. You're like, okay, this is going to happen. what is your prep like for something like that?
There's a lot of
What is your on the day? What is your morning, or what is? Walk me through that.
My prep for somebody like Maya Angelou would have happened 10 years before, right? Reading a Maya Angelou book, thinking about the things that she's interested in, being connected to what's happening in the world. You know, because Maya was talking about not just the politics and the heart within, but how it relates to what's out here. So you're always prepping. You're always prepping. I am reading things for no reason other than to learn them or to understand them. And then that thing becomes prep for something I'm going to do in 8 years from now. So there's no just one prep. I remember interviewing one guy in particular, and I knew he was a big glamorous Hollywood guy in a golden era of Hollywood. And I remember knowing that he didn't come from Hollywood. He came from a really small town, and that was kind of built into who his personality is. So I remember one day, lots of people had interviewed him over the course of his career, and I would say if I was going to ask him 20 questions, 10 of those questions everybody else has asked. You know, the same questions everybody would have asked. But there's a handful that would be just mine. You know, that would come from my life or my journey or the team. And so what I did one day, getting ready to interview him, was I went on Google Maps, I looked at his town, and then I went to Street View, and then I just went for a walk. You hit the arrows. And I just walked through the town. I've done this a lot. I just walked through the town, just hitting that button. Because you can get a sense of what's new development, what's old, how long that tree has been there. And I remember he said to me in an interview, or in the green room, I think beforehand, he had mentioned something about, you know, from this, whatever. And I said, oh, yeah, that had like that big tree stump by the post office or something like that, I said. And he looked at me. And it's just because I went on a walk.
Dude.
Yeah, and I knew that tree stump was clearly from an old tree.
Yeah.
You know, and I just kind of, and when I threw that out there, I wasn't 100% sure I was right. I was just taking a flyer. And a lot of times in the interviews, I would just make a guess based on acquired information, try to fill in a blank. And it's a high wire act, right? You're on TV and you're like, oh, fuck, if I get this wrong. But you just take a guess, right? And I did that with him. He looked at me. He's like, what? Have you been there? I said, no, but I told him, I said, I Google mapped and I just went for a walk through your town. Because you've been around so much, I just needed to kind of see what you might have seen when you were 8. And so that's how I research. But I have an insane brain. Like, my brain is dumb. Like, I go, pull this, pull that, do this, do that. And then and because it's sort of erratic, I'll be Googling something. Oh, I'm going to go over here, actually. And then I go down that rabbit hole. Then I got to remember to come back to this thing. And then I don't remember everything. But if I can retain about 40% of what I've come across, then I know that I'm ready for anything.
Yeah.
Right? I know that I'm ready for anything. So I had, on that talk, I had an amazing team. So I was really well prepared. But then anybody can research. This is what I've realized. Everybody has access to essentially the same research.
Yeah. Google.
Yeah.
Uncle Google.
Exactly, essentially. The real art now is what kind of connections can you make with the research? What do you see that maybe somebody else wouldn't see based on your life, based on your experiences, based on something you read 7 years ago, or 2 years ago, based on a conversation you had with somebody else? There's all kinds of ways to do it, so I don't think there's one way, but I think you do have to really dive in and try to understand why the person is the way they are. And just imagine what it would be like for them at a family dinner when they all regress back to who they were when they were 13. What is that dynamic? There's just a lot of different ways, right? But I really am fascinated by how people exist. This world's insane. How does anybody exist amidst all this heartache? What kind of cognitive dissonance do we all have? And we all have it. What kind of rationalizing do we make for ourselves? How do we lie to ourselves? When do we tell ourselves the truth? When is it too much? When is it not enough? We all have, everybody. There's that great Bob Dylan line, even the President of the United States sometimes has to stand and look at himself naked in the mirror. Like, and that's the gotta serve somebody line, right? It's the lyric. And everybody goes through it. Everybody second guesses themselves. That's the heart of who you really are. And so that's what I've always been fascinated with. A celebrity is a weird thing. It's kind of it's just a weird life. It's an accelerated version of the human experience to have this kind of thing. And I'm grateful for it, but I want to make sure that I do stuff with it. I want to do stuff with it. Otherwise, I'll hate my life. If it was just about this, I would hate it. Being famous is, I have profile for sure. People recognize me. But if it was just about that, I would hate it. And I'm not knocking people who love to be famous. I don't, because I think there's lots of value in it for them. But I would hate it. And I would feel like a fraud if I did it just for that. And I think I grew up listening to a lot of music that really beat into my head, don't be a fraud. And I think it always in TV, you're a version of a fraud sometimes. And I worked for companies in my career where I'm like, God, what am I doing? You know, what is TV really? What is media really? Where, you know, there's going to be an ad pre-roll that runs and we're generating revenue, we're selling sponsorships. Like this, we're in the game. So it's not like we're, you know, pure. We're all part of this system. And I don't think you can do no harm, but I think you can reduce how much harm you cause and you can increase how much good you do. I don't think it's a perfect experience. I think it's all capitalism. I think it's all technology. I think it's all data collection. I think this is the world we live in. So can I do good with it? Yeah, cool. And then that's what I'm going to try to do. It's imperfect, but I try.
When you do that, you're also inspiring others to maybe do the same. I feel
I hope
like
so. That's what they should take from this, because that's how I learned.
Yeah.
I saw other people do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw other people do it. That's the point. Everybody complains about the state of the world, and because the battles are so seemingly insurmountable, and a lot of them are. A lot of them we can't change. We can't stop a war. A tweet I'm going to do isn't going to stop a war. I know that.
Sometimes you're going to get hate. Why are you speaking up? Like, it's
always
like
gonna get hate.
I was mentioning, I'm like, I feel like from a year ago, like I can't speak on certain things
No, you
because
can't.
even
You
if
can't.
I share a fact, like statistic, it's like my messages are just getting blown up.
In my entire career, when we work in humanitarian spaces, in my entire career, I think once like maybe in Syria, sometimes you get attacked for, why are you working abroad? Why aren't you working at home? You get that stuff, but we also work at home. But we don't brag about everything we do. But you know, sharing a humanitarian post to get food for children, you get slayed. It's a very difficult time to talk.
Pregnant women.
It's a very difficult time talking, right?
Babies.
And so it's not difficult in one sense, and it's not complicated in one sense, but it is difficult and complicated if you have to eat and you have to feed and this is your livelihood. So it's just, there's a chill. People are afraid to speak out because you are attacked. And not just attacked criticism, because that's fine. I don't mind criticism, but you are actively attacked and your jobs, people are losing jobs. That's what's different, right? Being attacked for taking a position, I don't mind. But it's really, really, there are concerted efforts to make sure that anybody who takes a position is going to face more than just your regular criticism. I've seen it in my life. I've seen it with my friends. I've seen it with other people in this business who have lost jobs because they said ceasefire. Ceasefire. That's it. And so I'm going to get destroyed for saying this. I'm not speaking out nearly enough. I'm not speaking nearly enough. I'm trying to navigate how to do it. I don't know the right way to do it, right? And I think everybody in our position feels really, really unsure of how to be effective. It's very, very tough. It's very, very tough. This is not like other times.
100%.
Yeah.
You wake up, you're 90 years old, you're looking back on your life.
I'm never going to make 90.
Well, we don't know. It could be 80, 90.
Yeah, oh my God, no, I'm not going to make 90. Yeah.
What do you hope to be remembered for?
I hope that people felt or feel like I saw them and I took their time seriously. I hope that the people who know me and love me know this, that that's how I see them. the people who I meet, I think a lot of them get the sense that I'm there and I do see them. But I'll never meet the majority of the people I get to cross paths with in this kind of technology. But I hope people know that I work really hard personally and professionally to create the kinds of spaces that move us a little bit forward. And the way we get there is always different, but I see them, and I know that a lot of them see me, and not in some kind of modern, trendy speak of I see you, not that, but I actually see what this is like. I see the struggles of my grandmother and my mother and my sister and my uncle, even though I don't know him that well, but I know the struggles of my father and my grandfather. And most people are not villains. Most people are subjected to the tyranny of others. And I want to create as much space. And sometimes it's going to Pakistan. Sometimes it's talking to you about some of the stuff, the easy stuff we've talked about, and the not so easy stuff to talk about like we just did. Sometimes it's just playing a great video and introducing to a song. You know, the thing that I love the most is when somebody said this to me yesterday at that mixer after the interview, said to me that I helped shape their musical identity. And I know how important musical identity is to a certain person. If you're the kind of person where it matters, really matters. I'm one of those people. It really matters to me. I can't think of a greater gift in this world than to be somebody who introduced somebody to their favorite band. I can't think of a greater thing in the world. My life would not be the same if somebody didn't introduce me to the Sex Pistols. My life wouldn't be this way. Or the Misfits, or Zeppelin, what a gift. What a gift to share great songs. What a gift to share great music. What a gift to share an idea that challenges somebody. So this is kind of what I want. I want someone to when it's all said and done, just go, yeah, you know what? He did right by us. He did right by us. That's kind of really important to me, but only because I'm in this game,
Thank you so much, George Stroumboulopoulos.
Thank you.
Thank you, shukriya, and we really appreciate you. I'm your host, Zara Durrani, and I'll catch you soon.